hosts, two of you. I think that the female hosts missed it when the male host asked if they planned their dressing. And I think it's something we should talk about. Both of you look like set for a wedding. So can we just get a pastor to do the do? So good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That's hoping all of you can hear me now. Joke about the dressing of both anchor persons, where both of them look like they're set for a wedding. Okay. And the color matches even the backdrop. So I'm glad my cloth has a little bit of blue. Also, let me go straight. Let me go straight to the issue. Let me thank Jimmy, for inviting me in the first instance. And let me tell you that I had confirmed to him that I'll be fiscally available and present. But unfortunately, I had a reason to be out of jurisdiction thereafter. And I reached out to him to inform that I won't be able to attend. And he granted me the permission. He insisted that I should still show face this morning and say hi to you. And so, I thank you. I apologize to all of you for not being physically available for you, to you, something I really would have loved to do. I was looking forward to it. And let me especially apologize to my executive assistant, Faith Roberts, who said, I will really attend because I would see you there. I apologize. I'm sure a few other people may also have said, I will attend so that I can see him there. But at least you're seeing me. The difference is that you can't touch me. So it's not fair because you're seeing me, but I'm not seeing you. I know he can be that selfish. Though he's my younger brother, he can be that selfish where he sees you. He doesn't want me. He makes you see me and doesn't allow me to see you. But I'm just going to give you, so finally I get to see you. So I'm going to give you two for the price of one. A friend of mine, Sembe Ekanem Esquire, is a distinguished young person for all intents and purposes. He's strong on financial intelligence, and I'd like him to share his own story with you because his own financial intelligence, he didn't learn it from school, but he practices it very well. He's into a lot of mini investment schemes, and I'm usually very thrilled about how he goes about doing these things. So I'll be here with you for a while, then Sembe will be physically there with you, and so you'll be getting two for the price of one. How do you pay for one lawyer and end up getting two lawyers? I mean, that's the beauty of these things. But I just need to talk to you about one thing that should become the background of why you're even in this hall today. I know that when I would think that when the flyer went out, some of you registered because you said, oh, let me go there so that I can get investment ideas. Let me go there so that I can have, I can learn how to save money for future purposes. But let me talk with you about what should be your background, the disposition, your mindset. You see, the mind is like agriculture. It's like land. There are land preparatory activities. So you don't just buy a land and go and plant the land. No. You would see that there are in basic agriculture, you hear land preparation activities. So you have to clear the land. In some places, you have to burn the land. At other times, you have to till the land. Then you allow a period before you now go out planting. So if you just buy a land and you don't do the land preparation activities, you're going to discover that, yes, you're going to plant, but so you may plant it close to an antagonistic plant that doesn't even allow your seeds to sprout. You may plant things that don't coexist together. The ground may not even be ready, for planting. And so this 15 minutes for me is to share with you what I think should be your mind preparation activities, the background that should now receive the seeds that will come in different shapes and sizes. It's called the poverty trap. The poverty trap. That's what it's called. Now, the poverty trap is also called the poverty cycle or the cycles of poverty. And so you discover that a lot of people inherit poverty. Some parents are so poor that at death, the only inheritance they can give to their children is a transfer of poverty to the next generation. And that is something that is very prevalent in our context, not just in the Akwa Ibom context, not just in the Nigerian context. It is in the global south. And so in development studies, you would see that countries are graded. Previously, they used to be developed, developing, underdeveloped. No, but in studies now, in development studies, we now divide countries into global north and global south. So the global north countries are countries that are, their GDP is high, life expectancy is high, development in critical sector, education, access to healthcare, you know. So we, unfortunately, Nigeria is classified in the global south. So that is where we are, unfortunately. I hope your generation working in partnership with us will lift Nigeria out of being a global south country, because we actually have no business being a global south country. We should be in the global north. So the context of the poverty trap is prevalent in the global south. So what is this? I'm sure all of you have phones. So if you begin to Google now, you will see that the poverty trap is a situation where individuals, household, communities, and even the entire country, you know, is grappling with critical infrastructure deficit, transferred poverty from generation to generation. You now find that, and that is where you discover, which is why I need you to have this as the background. You discover that wealth isn't about just getting rich, having money. No. When you look at escaping the poverty trap, it goes beyond that. It goes to good education. It goes to access to qualitative health care. It goes to the quality of life that people are living. And it's not just about one person. It's about the household. It's about community, which is why I'm very interested in this. I'm interested in this because there's usually the situation where you find a mansion, a beautiful mansion, but just by the fence you find a thatched house. That is that's the picture you should have, and I'm sure a lot of you see that in your communities, you know, in your villages, or even in Uyo. Apart from maybe with housing, shelter, Africa, and the rest, in those areas of Uyo that are not estates and are not planned in the nature of planning, you would always find one very beautiful mansion, and by the side, the clear opposite of what the mansion is. If not a thatched house, you find one house with Cameroon zinc, one very poor and tattered house. Can I have a hand raised if you've noticed that kind of thing? A beautiful mansion having a neighbor as one house that, in fact, the owner of the mansion will probably want to buy off. If you have witnessed that kind of situation, can I see your hands up? Can you just raise your hands? Let me be sure that you understand what I mean. Okay, I see some houses. Okay, all right. So the rest of the people who are now carrying their hands, I'm sure that they all live in a with housing and shelter Africa. Or some of you just flew in from Ikoyi this morning. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. That's the picture of wealth inequality in our country, in our space, that very rich people have as neighbors very poor people. And that is clearly an indication of inequality. So when you see, the likelihood will be that the poor person would hand over as an inheritance his poverty to his next generation, and the rich, if they are not careful, because it's not about individual wealth, that rich person may end up having a child who sells that house because that child didn't get good and qualitative education and did not use the financial intelligence that you're about to learn to be able to sustain wealth. So to escape the poverty trap, you don't just need to make money. You need to have the mindset, the intelligence, the knowledge, the disposition to manage this world, which leads us to why sustainability is a big issue. My friend and brother, Blessing Menon, you guys call him Oluwa, I had to go to the UK to study sustainability because sustainability is huge. It is not about making money today. It's about how that money is made, how that money is sustained, and how that money is transferred to the next generation. And not just making money for the sense of money, but the functional capacity of money to transform human lives. I take that again. What you're about to learn today shouldn't just be about learning how to make money for yourself. No, it's about how to make money, and how that money becomes functional to the extent that it changes your mentality and mindset. It affects the people around and about you, and affects the community in a sustainable manner that the next generation will not be suffering from the things this generation suffered from. So clearly, education has a role to play. Healthcare has a role to play. So, but how do you even make money first? Because the first point is the start point. So, cycles of poverty are reinforcing, rotating poverty disposition that engulfs the present and threatens the future. So, that is why it is dangerous. That poverty is not just the poverty that holds on to the present. It holds on to the present and begins to hold on to the future. So, how do we look at this? How do these things apply to us? First, economists, global economists have said that it's a difficult thing to be able to escape it, but not impossible. And so these things appear in low income. And as we sit there in Uyo, you do know that the avenues of making money in Uyo are few, truth be told. And I was with my friend Sembenga a few weeks ago in Uyo, and I saw new joints opening, new hotels, new joints. So I asked Sembenga, I said, there's something I don't understand about you, and I'm sure most of you may have thought about it too. I don't see new sources of income spring up in Uyo. Almost everything in Uyo has to do with government. If it hasn't got to do directly with government, it will be the people in government, politicians, the few separate people, they are not significant like they used to be. So I don't really see what brings money. But every other day, every time I come to you, if I live for 2-3 days, a new hotel has been opened, a new joint. And if you branch there, people are there drinking. And so I worry a lot about, we don't have many places to make money, but we have many places to spend money. Yes, I do know that for the staff who work there and the business owners of those places, that becomes a money-making venture for them. But I worry that I do not find, large businesses, large companies spring up in similar manner. So, low income, we cannot deny, and there comes a time where saying the truth to yourself, must be your habit. You must look in the mirror and say, who is my problem? You just keep a mirror and you see that the person you find in the mirror is your problem. So we must get to a point where we tell ourselves the truth. And so now that you're about to learn about financial intelligence, you must understand that it is not the totality of the money in your hands when you're in business that is yours. There is the capital, there is the backup capital, and there is the profit. And not every part of the profit is expendable. So you must determine within the profit what is the expendable limit in the profit. Else you'll just be working for the business. And if you start just working for the business and the business is just paying only your bills, you cannot escape the cycles of poverty. You cannot escape the poverty trap. And so these things show up in low income. It shows up in the inability of people to save. It shows up in the inability of people to invest. And again, I'll tell you, savings is good, but savings has never helped anyone to escape the poverty trap. Investments has rather done so. And so you must understand, whilst you need savings to have the basis, the initial capital to invest, but you must prioritize investment over saving. And so I hope that we're on the same page with each other. And so, like every trap, immediately you are there, you need to find a way to live. But most traps are constructed in a way that trying to live entangles you the more. It's like a net. If you get entangled in a fishing net, one of the reasons why fishing nets are not put on the shallow end, at least, and when fishing nets are being put in water, there must be warning signs. The reason is that immediately you get entangled in a net, the more you try to leave that net, the more the net entangles you. I don't know if we understand. Also, have you seen that rat gum? I don't know how many of you have seen rats, because looking at the faces in this hall, all of you look too tush. You people don't know rats. How many of you know Okon Calabar? Can I see your hand if you know Okon Calabar? The chicks will not raise their hands so that the boys won't think that they know Okon Calabar. You know Okon Calabar. You know. You've seen it. So, when you put a rat gum for a rat, and that rat enters with the first two legs, or the first hands, the two hands. If that rat were sensible and the legs are outside, what should it do? It should use the legs to drag the rat gum, right? To a point where it can escape. But that's not what it does. It now brings the two free legs, puts inside the gum in a bid to free the two hands. And that is how the four limbs of the rat ends up in the gum. Same thing with a trap. If you set a trap, usually traps are set with baits, because if you just set the trap, it won't catch anything. You have to put something that looks enticing. You know, so if you want to catch a rat, you must put what the rat eats. It's the same thing that poverty does. Poverty entices you with little money, but it wants to keep you there. I have a nephew of mine who reached out to me to say, bros, I want to start working. I told him, look, there's time to learn and there's time to earn. And that it is not for nothing that there is L before N. You need to learn before you earn. And the degree of learning will determine the degree of earning when financial intelligence and strategy comes into play. So a lot of you are into IT now. Everybody's rushing into IT. But you're going to be rushing into the easy path. You're going to be rushing into the base path, which is the least possible entry point. That is where you find too many people. There's so much competition. But if you take your time to attempt to go up a bit, you discover that the higher you go, the less competitive it becomes. And so what the poverty trap does is to put little money in front of you and entice you to come. Immediately you enter that trap. If you're not careful or you attend events like this, it becomes impossible to leave that trap. Dear friends, if you don't take anything from me today, take the definition and meaning of poverty trap or the cycles of poverty. Number one. Number two, take from me the fact that you must prepare your mind that the reason you want to learn financial intelligence is you need it to help you to escape the poverty trap. And know that the poverty trap is not escaped by a single individual becoming excessively rich at the expense of even members of his family or members of his community. It is rather the ability of people working with the consciousness that poverty trap is communal, poverty trap is transgenerational, and therefore you're not just thinking personal, you're thinking egalitarian, you're thinking communal. You're saying, what can I do to ensure that there's no thatch house in my village? What can I do to ensure that no child in my village goes to bed hungry? What can I do to ensure that within my extended family, no child doesn't have education at least up to secondary school? I mean, so because if you don't, this cycle, a poor person will most likely produce another poor person. And a second generation poor person is a worse form of the first generation, because he's carrying in today a poverty that is older than him. He's taking the poverty from his parents. And you know that we relive the experience of our childhood, true or false. Educational scientists, educational psychologists, and people who are professionals in early child education insist that a child is born tabula rasa. He's born a blank slate. And whatever that child becomes is what the society has written on that child. So a poor society will write poverty into that child. Now, let me tell you how bad it is. It is not about just making money. You have seen, you seated there, you know of people who are very rich, but poverty mentality has taken them up. That even in their wealth, they are very afraid that they haven't had enough. And they still continue in the crude accumulation of more wealth. And the insatiable disposition that they bring to it makes it difficult for them to make anything out of it. You see a poor person who is fighting for 10,000 naira. You know why? Because that poor person, the rich person who is fighting for 10,000 naira, because he is not conscious of the transformative nature of wealth. So he's still engaged in a crude accumulation of wealth. You see him fighting to die for 10,000, whereas he has 50 million naira. The poverty mentality has not left him. That is one of the things that the poverty trap does. It puts a poverty mentality in your mind that irrespective of the wealth you have, you cannot share, you cannot give, you cannot apply that wealth in sustainable ways. So, dear friends, as we prepare to engage in this topic about financial intelligence, which will teach you about savings, will teach you about investment, will teach you about a lot of things, the ability to create transformational wealth, like knowledge, like leadership. There is acquired knowledge, there is acquired wealth, there is learned knowledge, there is learned wealth, but there is transformational knowledge and there is transformational wealth. So how this wealth transforms you into a way, into a person who is not just thinking about buying a car, buying a house, doing this, into saying, I want to start now to prepare for my unborn children. I want to begin to invest in sustainable schemes that will not just answer to my needs today, but will sustainably answer to my needs tomorrow. And in that way, I want to start a small scholarship scheme, because many children in my village who have finished secondary school and who have the acumen, have the capacity to go to university or a tertiary institution are unable to do so on account of lack of money. Therefore, I'm not just making money for myself, I'm also trying to make money so that I can lift people. I can lift those people into education. From education, they begin to earn, and with the knowledge of financial intelligence, they can also help push their generations out of the poverty trap. So this poverty trap is transgenerational. If your parents had passed it on to you, you must take an oath today. You must make a declaration to yourself that you will not pass on this poverty trap to your next generation. How many people in this room are ready to say that I will not pass on poverty trap to the next generation? Can I see your hands? Excellent, excellent. And it's something very serious. So when you have the consciousness of the poverty cycles, the cycles of poverty and the poverty trap, you begin to think in long term. You're not thinking of Brazilian hair immediately. There's nothing bad about Brazilian hair, if you ask me, if that's what makes you happy. But you are not going to be thinking in the short term. You're going to be asking yourself, okay, so if I have 100,000, instead of that 100,000 naira you being used to buy Brazilian hair, what can I put this 100,000 naira in that it can produce the money to buy Brazilian hair? So in a way that your money funds your life, in such a way that you have bought the Brazilian hair, but your money is still available. I mean, you don't need to spend all your money doing the things you want to do. You can invest the money and that money begins to work for you. So issues like, there's a lot of things. There are bonds, there are treasury bills, there are mutual funds, there are high yield savings. I mean, there are plenty of things that you can do to begin to raise money so that you can begin to pay yourself salary. So instead of spending all of that money, if you were to give that money time and to apply it in a way that financial intelligence will teach you, but with the disposition of defeating the cycles of poverty and exiting from the poverty trap, then you would have earned both your money and the profits on your money. Dear friends, it's been an honor to speak with you this past few minutes, and all I needed to do was to pass to you this message that the poverty trap is a reality. The poverty trap is living with us in Akwa Ibom, living with us in Nigeria. But people have escaped this poverty trap. People have saved themselves and their generations from this poverty trap. And I and you can do the same thing. Thank you, Ni, for the opportunity. Thank you, all of you, for listening to me. And we can see each other, but we can't touch each other. That's the sad thing, but that's what technology has been able to do. I thank all of you. Thank you very much. It's a summit.
Please, a round of applause. It's for you to do what? Escape what? Poverty. Say, I must escape poverty. And how are you going to do this? Through savings. Through what? Investments. That's correct. Please, a round of applause for yourself again. Thank you very much, Comr. So while we wait for his representative who will complete the remaining minutes, well, please call. I'll hand over to Michael MC to call on the next person. Thank you.
So I think that somehow I'm feeling bad. Do you know why? Because when they were talking about investment,